This is lesson 112 in the first chapter for geometry. What we're going to learn today is how to find the midpoint of two coordinates. The midpoint is basically like the average of the x coordinate and the y coordinates. So the first piece, or the first thing that we do, is we average the x values. And remember, the way that you add them up, the way that you average them is to add them up and then divide by how many there are. So if we're adding two things, we just divide it by 2. After that, we average the y values. And we come up with a new coordinate, which is basically x sub m, y sub m. This means like the x and y of the midpoint. I used m for midpoint. So I'll try to use this when we're working so we keep track of which one are the midpoint x and y values and which ones are the endpoints, okay? So if we have these two coordinates and we want to find the midpoint, what we do is we take x plus x divided by 2, so 2 plus 8 divided by 2, and then we do 4 plus 11 divided by 2. Well, 2 plus 8 is 10. 4 plus 11 is 15. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. So this would be our midpoint. And that kind of makes sense because 5 is halfway between 2 and 8. It's 3 more than 2 and 3 less than 8. And then 7.5 is 3.5 more than 4, and 3.5 less than 11. Anyway, 5 is halfway between 2 and 8. 7.5 is halfway between 4 and 11. So if we do the same thing here, negative 7 plus 15. And again, we have to divide by 2. And then on the other side, we have 13 plus negative 23. 13 plus negative 23 is negative 10. And then negative 7 plus 15 is 8. So we still have to divide these by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. So this would be our midpoint. Again, 4 is halfway between negative 7 and 15. Negative 5 is halfway between 13 and negative 23. So here, if we find the midpoint, we're going to go negative 15 plus negative 7. And then 11 plus 13. Negative 15 plus negative 7 is negative 22. This is 24. Negative 22 divided by 2 is negative 11. 24 divided by 2 is 12. So this is our midpoint. This is like x sub m, y sub m. I didn't write that on the other ones, but it's just the midpoint, the x midpoint and the y midpoint. So now, if A is negative 3, 4, and 1, negative 2 is the midpoint, what is the other point? Basically what this is saying is if you're at A right here, and they're telling you that the midpoint is 1, negative 2, they want to know what is this other coordinate. Now, the way you could think about this is that from negative 3 to 1, that's 4 steps. You went up 4. So to go the other way, you need to go up 4 more. So you would be at 5. And then here from 4 to negative 2, you went down 6. So to find the end point, you would need to go down 6 again to negative 8. Okay, if that doesn't make sense to you, it's okay. But what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to use some formulas if that doesn't make sense. So what we're going to do, just to get formulas and get used to things, we're going to call coordinate A negative 3, 4. The other endpoint we're going to call x comma y because we don't know what it is. And then usually what we do is we mess with these two coordinates, our two endpoints, to look for our midpoint. So usually what we do is put these two together to find our third one. The reason I'm setting this up this way is to help you figure out how to set up the formulas we're going to need. What you're going to do is you're going to take the first plus the first equals the first. What I mean by that is to find this x value, you need to go negative 3 plus x, always divided by 2, equals 1. Oopsie, let's do this in blue. Okay, so negative 3 plus x equals 1. And then we're going to solve. It's going to be the same steps every time. So first you multiply by 2, chunga chunga. Negative 3 plus x equals 2. Plus 3, chunga chunga. X is 5. Okay? Then we're going to do the same thing, but with our y values. Second plus second equals second. So we're going to go 4 plus y equals negative 2. But don't forget to divide by 2 because that's always the formula. So then we're going to multiply by 2, chunga chunga. 4 plus y equals negative 4. Minus 4, chunga chunga, y equals negative 8. So our midpoint, our other endpoint is 5 comma negative 8. And that's what we determined right here, right away. But this is algebraically how you do it. So if we have the same thing again, we have A is 5, 7. Midpoint is negative 1, 2. We need to find this other endpoint. Well, from 5 to negative 1, that's down 6. So we'd have to go down 6 more to negative 7. 7 to 2, that's a drop of 5. 2 drop 5 more is negative 3. So I know this is going to be our solution, but let's pretend that we don't. What we're going to do in this case is we'll set up A, so 5, 7. Our other coordinate, the other endpoint, equals the midpoint. So what we're going to do is first. So we go 5 plus x divided by 2, 5x divided by 2 equals negative 1. Then same steps as before, we always have to multiply by 2 on both sides. Chunga chunga. 5 plus x equals negative 2. Minus 5. Chunga chunga. X is negative 7. Then what we're going to do is second plus second equals second. Second plus second divided by 2 equals second. And then again, same steps, times 2, chunga chunga. 7 plus y equals 4, minus 7,